H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Call of Cthulhu, you might be tempted to say that we actually do get to encounter, at least in the frame of the narrative, the being Cthulhu, the Great Old One itself, near the end of the work. But actually, it's at a remove, you could say, because it's the narrator who is reading through and then recounting to us what it is that second mate Johansen has gone through. And so you can say that we never actually, in the course of the narration, directly encounter Cthulhu, but the liveliness of the story is such that it's easy for us to lose sight of that. And we begin a little bit further out, away from the, let's call it the creature itself, by looking at how Cthulhu is encountered in dreams. In particular, the dream of Wilcox, this sculpture student who comes to Professor Angle, the narrator's great uncle, with a bas-relief of not only Cthulhu, but also some writing beneath him and the city of Relay sketched out behind him. And so we find that sensitive artists and poets around the same time are having similar dreams. And not all of the dreams actually center directly on Cthulhu. They have to do with this vast city of Relay, which we'll talk about a little bit more elsewhere, and about a voice that isn't really a voice, but it's the only way to describe it, that comes out of, a great distance, and saying things that seem to be gibberish, but are actually in a language. So we find that Wilcox is having these dreams, and then as the dreams intensify, Wilcox has a very, very bad night, and so do several other people, including a architect with leanings towards theosophy and occultism, who expired after incessant screamings to be saved from some escaped denizens of hell. What does Wilcox himself experience? So what he can say, or rather what the doctor who is with him can say, was that the dreams touched wildly on a gigantic thing miles high, which walked or lumbered about. And this is going to actually be Cthulhu. We find that other people have similar dreams of, a colossal being that is terrifying to them. And then we get an explanation for this. Coming from Castro, this prisoner who's been taken in Legrasse's raid many, many years earlier. So Castro tells us in sort of an info dump all about the Great Old Ones, and in particular about Cthulhu himself as a result. So the Great Old Ones came down from the stars. They existed here on Earth long before human beings came into existence. And eventually they retreated to this city of Relay, where they were living a weird kind of not dead, not alive, and could communicate with human beings by transmitted thought, which is their language. And they know what's going on in the universe, so they're not dead, but they're also not alive. And how do they communicate with the fleshly minds of mammals? Well, by shaping their dreams, by getting into there and showing them things in these dreams, things that human beings don't necessarily want to see. So this gives us an explanation for what's going on. And then, within the narrative, we get at least an account of a face-to-face encounter with Cthulhu itself, coming from Johansen, who is a member of the crew of the Emma. The Emma is attacked by this pirate yacht, the Alert, which they manage to take over. They kill all of the pirates or whatever they want to be known as. And they take it and they go sailing looking for what these people were trying to warn them away from. They arrive at an island. They find a city. And unfortunately, as we see, I'll just read this. Bryden pushed at this stone of this gigantic door in several places without result. Then Donovan felt over it delicately around the edge, pressing each point separately as he went. Then very softly and slowly, the acre-great panel began to give inward at the top, and they saw that it was balanced. So it opens up. The aperture was black with a darkness almost material. That tenebrousness was indeed a positive quality, for it obscured such parts of the inner walls as ought to have been revealed, and actually burst forth like smoke from its eon-long imprisonment, visibly darkening the sun as it slunk away into the shrunken and gibbous sky on flapping membranous wings. The odor arising from the newly opened depths was intolerable. And at length, the quick-eared Hawkins thought he heard a nasty slopping sound down there. Everyone listened, and everyone was listening still when it lumbered slobberingly into sight and gropingly squeezed its gelatinous green immensity through the black doorway into the tainted outside air of that poisoned city of madness. So the entire crew is there. They've actually, unfortunately, liberated Cthulhu, and we read that a little bit later. The stars were right again. What an age-old cult had failed to do by design, a band of innocent sailors had done by accident. After vingantillions of years, great Cthulhu was loose again and ravening for delight. So what happens? Well, Cthulhu comes out of this massive doorway that isn't quite big enough for Cthulhu. That's why it has to squeeze itself out. And immediately, according to Johansson, 2 men just die of fright on the spot. 3 of them, as we read, are grabbed by Cthulhu. Right? So 3 men were swept up by the flabby claws before anyone turned. God rest them if there's any rest in the universe. They were Donovan, Guerra, and Angstrom. So now 5 of the crew are down. And what about Parker? Parker slipped as the other 3 were plunging frenziedly over endless vistas of green-crusted rock to the boat. And Johansson swears he was swallowed up by an angle of masonry which shouldn't have been there. An angle which was acute but behaved as if it was obtuse. So only 2 men managed to get back to the boat, as we'll talk about. But we get a sort of description as something not describable of Cthulhu happening here. So he tells us the thing cannot be described. There is no language for such abysms of shrieking and immemorial lunacy, such eldritch contradictions of all matter, force, and cosmic order. So, matter, force, typical things that we talk about in physics, cosmic order, but eldritch contradiction. So eldritch, having to do with, the supernatural. In this case, the supernatural is, you could say, for Lovecraft, just revealing other sides of the natural, which are not what we thought they were, right? There's beings, entities, which are radically different than what we understand. Contradictions, at least from our point of view, which is part of why Cthulhu drives people mad. But we can't make it fit our contemporary conception of the world, our experiential understanding, our science. It's to some degree beyond our description. He says, a mountain walked or stumbled. What wonder across the earth a great architect went mad and poor Wilcox raved with fever. The thing of the idols. So the idols depict it, right? The green, sticky spawn of the stars had arisen to claim his own. We know that he has flabby claws that can grab up humans easily. We're going to read a little bit later that he's, like the storied cyclops, sliding greasily into the water, all of these sort of descriptive terms. And you could say, well, if Cthulhu really is indescribable, H.P. Lovecraft sure does a lot of description of him, yes, but the descriptions are always leaving something unsaid, something for us to attempt to imagine. And so what happens? Well, Johansen and Bryden manage to reach the yacht. They get it underway. There's still steam in the boiler, but it's going to take them a little while to get up a full head of steam and get out of there. Will they escape Cthulhu? So we read that the thing from the stars slavered and gibbered like Polypheme cursing the fleeing ship of Odysseus. Then bolder than the storied Cyclops, great Cthulhu slid greasily into the water, began to pursue with vast wave-raising strokes of cosmic potency. Bryden looked back and went mad. And Bryden is just going to die, right? So now we've got one character left. And Johansen engages in a desperate gambit, you could say, a desperate attempt to save his own life, but also destroy this thing which is going to be, threatening humankind. So, knowing the thing could surely overtake the Alert until steam was fully up, he set the engine for full speed, ran lightning-like on deck, and reversed the wheel. There was a mighty eddying and foaming in the noisome brine, and the steam mounted higher and higher. The brave Norwegian drove his vessel head-on against the pursuing jelly, which rose above the unclean froth like the stern of a demon galleon. The awful squid head with writhing feelers came up nearly to the bowsprit of the sturdy yacht, but Johansen drove on relentlessly. So he's going to ram Cthulhu. There was a bursting as of an exploding bladder, a slushy nastiness as of a cloven sunfish, a stench as of 1,000 open graves, and a sound that the chronicler would not put down on paper. For an instant, the ship was befouled by an acrid and blinding green cloud, and then there was only a venomous seething astern. So, sounds like the hero of the story, Johansen, has won. The great creature has been conquered. No, that's not the case at all, because he looks behind him, and what does he see? The scattered plasticity of that nameless spy spawn was nebulously recombining in its hateful original form, while its distance widened every second as the Alert gained impetus from its mounting steam. So Cthulhu is coming back together. This is just a temporary respite. And Johansen doesn't save the day. As a matter of fact, nothing actually saves the day, because the day is only postponed. The great city of Relay gets swallowed back under the ocean, and Cthulhu gets pulled down with it, right? But Cthulhu is still there. The city is still there, just waiting to rise again. So there's no victory here. There's no more than temporary respite as far as the story goes. But we did get to encounter, at least secondhand, one of the great old ones in what's going to become called a little bit later on the Cthulhu mythos, although Lovecraft preferred the term Yog Sagathari, right? So this is a really important set of moments within this story.